Hello everyone, my name is James and welcome to my channel Dead on Pull, and this is part 2 of my shadowboxing video. In this video I will discuss how I wrapped up creating this shadowbox from 3D printing some terrain pieces for it to just adding some terrain that you get from miniature terrain sets. I hope you enjoy the video. As you can see, the first thing I did was create a 3D printed tree in Blender 3D, which is an open source free 3D application that you can use to generate 3D models. And then I exported it from the Blender 3D to my Bamboo Mini 3D for printing. The print took about 4 hours to print on the Bamboo Mini, and I printed it with one of its finer print heads, which probably wasn't needed, because overall the Mini is going to get covered in a texture paint that will make it more organic looking. I used some Vallejo earth texture paint to represent the tree bark. I had this lying around my office for a while now, but it was still in good condition to use. I use puttying tools mostly to get the texture paint on the model, because the paint is more like a putty in that you can place it on the miniature and sculpt it around a little bit to give it a little bit more texture looking. So let's fast forward through the rest of this section so you can see how the texture paint went on the model. And this is what the texture painted model looks like when it's finished. Well, at least the texture painting. And I let this paint dry for a while to ensure that it stuck to the miniature properly. Now it was time to paint the miniature. I used combinations of paints for this part. First I primed the model gray, then I used a brown contrast paint to do a base coat, and after that I used a lighter brown to dry brush some more details onto the Mini. And then finally I used a shade paint to color in some green areas for the Mini. Let's speed along this section so you can see what the miniature looks like finally painted. And here's what the model looks like finished and placed next to other models that will be in the miniature scene. Now I'm going to place some holes in the shadow box using my wireless Dremels so that I can insert a light into the scene. This was not as easy as I thought it was going to be, but I got it to work out in the end. I guess the important thing to remember is just keep trying until it ends up going in the end. Because at the end of the day, hey, it's your project. Just make it work. I'll fast forward through the rest of this next section so you don't have to see me struggle as much. Another important thing I will say for this section too is always remember to test things out before you end up gluing everything into its final state so that you can easily change something if you need to. For this next section, I ended up hot gluing the miniatures into the shadow box, and I primed the floor tilings brown to cover everything up. So when I start adding in some more tree textures and bushes and such, it won't be as bad because brown will cover up the bottom section. And in these next sections, just me hot gluing on bushes and other grassy type textures into the shadow box to make it look better. I'll fast forward this so you can see what it looks like at the end. And the second to last thing I do is test out the lighting again after everything is put into the shadow box. And after the light comes on, I think it looks pretty good. Now on to the final step of adding a glass cover to the box. This last part was fairly simple. The hinges are basically double-sided tape that I have a hinge on it that I got from Amazon, and the cover is a plexi sheet that I cut out to size up to about the size of the box. I mean, overall this could use some more work, but this is more of a proof of concept, so I thought it came out pretty decent. Thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you again in the next one.